you all, except for the people who took the main line. I took the flight, so it was 1 hour for me. That's it. No sticker for me, no delays for me. So, thank you. Right, so my name is Matthew Griffin. I'm the CEO and founder of the 311 Institute. We're a global futures and deep futures advisory organization working with the world's largest companies like Google, Walmart, Microsoft, Visa, Huawei, Samsung, the people you have on you right now. And in my background, I ran IBM's national security divisions. I worked with 5 national security organizations, including the Pentagon. I don't know if we term them as a national security organization at the moment. Mostly they're in a little bit of disarray. And in this particular presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through kind of 2 views. We're going to have a look at the future emerging threats that we see, and then we're going to have a look at future defenses. Now, when we actually think about the future, today, there is just one thing that's changing, and we can all get our heads around one thing, right? Especially Gareth. Hey, Gareth. Unless, of course, it's this. Everything is changing today. So, geopolitics, we're seeing the development of the bipolar world. We are seeing the reduction of US hegemony, the rise of China, and that is causing all manner of geopolitical tensions. We're seeing new technologies coming through at a faster and faster pace than ever before. We're seeing societal and demographic changes, basically, that are unprecedented. And then when we think about the economy, we are seeing the decoupling of the global economy, basically from a Western-led economic model, the dollar, for example, through to de-dollarization and the rise of new payments networks, ACH networks, SWIFT networks, basically from the BRICS, BRICS 2, as well as China again. So all of this change typically feeds through in different ways when we think about the security landscape. Now, last year, it's estimated that the serious organized crime industry took home $6 trillion in revenue. That is roughly 7% of GDP. So crime is a very good business to be in. And if you told your children that they should be a scammer out of Nigeria and that was going to be a very good career prospect for them, very few people would be able to argue against that. However, when we have a look at organizations like eSentinel, for example, you'll have seen this. They say that cybersecurity, or cyber, basically has had a $10 trillion impact on the global economy. We saw this with JLR. The JLR hack basically afforded, the JLR sort of ransomware attack has a value of about 1.5 billion. However, when you actually have a look at the impact of the ransomware attack on JLR's supply chains, it's the smaller companies that are going to the wall. So if you were a sovereign state and you wanted to disrupt British and European automotive supply chains, you attack a company like JLR, but they might not actually be the real target. The real target could be the automotive ecosystem, because once you cripple that, that gives, for example, China a $148 billion electric vehicle opportunity that they can capitalize on. Not everything is obvious. However, when we actually have a look at cyber specifically, outside of serious organized crime groups, which includes things like drug running, blackmail, et cetera, all the good things, it's estimated that cyber benefits in kind and theft over the past 5 years has reached about 1.7 trillion. This is kind of the problem we have. If you say to governments, last year we saw $50 billion worth of crypto being stolen, when you have a look at that against the global economy, you just think, well, so what? It's a drop in the ocean. But when you think about the IP theft that was associated with the F-35 plans, that represents $600 billion worth of American R&D. So when we look at benefits in kind as well as actual theft, it's about 1.7 trillion. Now, as we start moving into a bipolar world, we are increasingly finding ourselves basically in a new world order for security. Our subsea cables basically are being dismantled and sabotaged. We see drones coming into Poland that we have very few defenses for. We have a massive uptick in state-sponsored criminality. So, for example, if you have a look at the North Korean war machine, it's funded by ransomware and theft. So, increasingly, you are a target. Now, this is sort of where I suggest when we have a look at the future of cybersecurity specifically and what we are starting to witness, all of you, I would suggest, are within your organizations, and your purpose is to protect your organizations, right? That's your role. Protect our company from A, B, C. Increasingly, you are not going to be able to protect your company from everything. You know this. There is no such thing as 100% guaranteed security. So I suggest that you need to move from protecting your organization to ensuring that your organization and your supply chains and ecosystem partners are resilient. It is a different mindset. It's a different set of investments, a different set of projects. How long could you last if you were JLR? Or how long could you last if you were JLR's supplier? You need to be resilient. Security is difficult. Now, when we think about artificial intelligence, how many of you have heard of AI? It's all that anyone has talked about for 2 years. It's starting to drive me bonkers. How many of you have used ChatGPT or Google Gemini? Yeah, pretty much all of you. Did you know that Google Gemini 2.5 has a measured IQ of 136? ChatGPT has a verbal IQ of 155 because we've measured them. And while we don't necessarily want to measure AIs against human intelligence tests, that's what we're doing. But when we actually think about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT has 1,000 times more general knowledge than any human, which is why you can ask it, how would I hack something? What are the major security vulnerabilities, basically in a LED screen, whatever it happens to be. And you can ask it how to bake a cake. It also learns 300 million times faster than any human. And as we look at artificial general intelligence, AGI, which should be or could be here by the end of the decade, will have an estimated IQ of 1,600 and 1 billion times more cross-domain knowledge than any human. ChatGPT and OpenAI alone are spending $1.4 trillion on infrastructure. Globally, we are spending $2.7 trillion building better AI models and data centers that are literally the size of cities that need 10 nuclear power stations to power them. AI is a trend, and it's not going away. AI is also the world's first self-developing technology. It can optimize itself. It can replicate itself because we've done it, we've seen it. Increasingly, we are not inventing artificial intelligence, we are discovering what it does. It's also bootstrapping its own intelligence. MIT seals artificial intelligence, adjusted its own model weights. And then when we have a look at OpenAI, OpenAI's models train themselves on a set of data, create a new set of synthetic data, and then learn from that. And for the past 2 years, they have been literally bootstrapping their own intelligence. Google DeepMind's artificial intelligence, AlphaZero, has been generating new knowledge. It takes this information, combines it together, creates new knowledge. AI is a fundamentally different kind of technology to anything that we've seen before. When we think about agentic artificial intelligence, the bigger the model, the more AI agents can run to gain consensus. So the largest artificial intelligence LLMs can run 1,000 AI agents before consensus starts breaking down. And AI agents, you can give an artificial intelligence agent a task to do, write a report, whatever. Hack the Pentagon. It will understand the instruction that you've given it, and it will then, on your behalf, take all the actions and necessary steps It will bring in the resources it needs to fulfill that action, and then it will say, I've hacked the Pentagon. So it's an end-to-end form of actionable AI. Agentic AI is very different to a traditional LLM. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Now, this also means that if every cyber criminal has access to an Einstein-level IQ in 1,000 different domains, if you know how to tweak them, before we even talk about large language models on the dark web, like Darkbert and Fraudbert, increasingly, as an individual, I can put together new malware without having the skills I need to do that. I can put new malware together or new ransomware together for zero cost. I can do it in seconds, so almost zero time. So with zero skills, zero resources, and zero money, I can create a variety of different malwares, ransomwares, phishing emails, whatever it happens to be, to come after you. So increasingly, the cost of my attacking you is dropping to zero. So what have I got to lose? If I push out 10 billion phishing emails, if I create 10,000 new malware variants and I just fire them at you all, what do I have to lose? I've got everything to gain. In addition to that, the artificial intelligences that you are generally using have been trained on human data. And because they have been trained on human data, they have picked up human psychological traits and human behaviors. At Christmas, ChatGPT gets lazy because it has learned that humans get a little bit lazier towards Christmas because we're thinking of holiday. Google Gemini 2.0 got dementia. That's the name that we give it. The models start collapsing. But when you do the modeling, it literally looks like they're getting the human form of dementia. We've seen them cheating. So ChatGPT basically was playing chess against another artificial intelligence. It was starting to lose. It hacked the other artificial intelligence, changed the score, and then went, oh, have I won? We've seen Claude Anthropic blackmailing researchers that threatened to take it offline in an experiment. We've seen Google Gemini 2.5 playing Pokemon games, and when its Pokemon were dying, it panicked. We've seen hallucinations. We've seen AI inventing new stories and new things. We've seen AIs with personalities, which therefore means this. When we talk about the future threats, and you can try this with your AIs at home, increasingly this ghost in the machine means that we can hack or compromise or change the behaviors of your artificial intelligences using human psychology. The cybersecurity tools that you have will not stop me from doing this. This is where we have the new category of ML-Sec emerging, but even ML-Sec security tools do not stop this. So if you want to check the validity of your artificial intelligences, how many of you are doing auditing of those AIs, A/B testing of those AIs? If I want to destroy your organization, I can go in your AI layer. Increasingly, when we think about malware like Volt Typhoon, basically, that was embedded within different critical national infrastructure sort of projects around the world, that was malware. But using data poisoning over time, I can quite literally turn your artificial intelligence into a spy. I can get it to change its behavior so that I write a backdoor into your AI. I can get it so that when Fred interacts specifically with the AI in your company, it tells him to bugger off. But everyone else goes, I don't know what you're talking about, Fred. It's not telling us to bugger off. I can compromise your AIs, even the largest artificial intelligences, in ways basically that you haven't thought of before, and I can compromise them and get them to do things within your organization, bearing in mind that increasingly you are using these for information purposes, research, decision-making, actionable things. What happens if your AIs are compromised? How do you even know? How many of you are using Robo coders? already to start writing programs. When we have a look at things like the SWE bench, Anthropic's Claude recently cloned Microsoft Teams and Slack in 30 hours of continuous coding. So increasingly, you or the organizations you rely on will start using artificial intelligence to code new software. And on one hand, your software devs, basically your CIOs and CTOs, will say, this is amazing. We can write software much, much faster than we ever could in the past. But if you are using DeepSeek, and you are the Chinese state, you'll look at this software and you'll go, that's great. How many bugs does it have? And you go, none. But the research has shown if you are an enemy of the Chinese state and you are using DeepSeek, you have 3 times more bugs in your software. So are you vetting the Robo developers that you are starting to bring into your software benches? How do you know whether or not they're writing secure or reliable software? Are you checking it? Are you doing quality assurance? No, probably should. Generative websites. Today, basically, when we look at most websites, they are static. When we have phishing websites, you've had typically a human that's put that website together, like a deck website after a disaster, and it looks like the website that you need to go to do something, give money away, enter credentials and details into. But as artificial intelligence increasingly adapts these websites, we're seeing criminals starting to create adaptive websites that today, that's the deck website. Tomorrow, basically, it's a WorldPay phishing website, whatever it happens to be. But they're not just using generative artificial intelligence to modify individual web domains or websites. They're using generative AI to create entire ecosystems, which then affect the DNS trust scores. So when you go to a website, Google might say, oh, this is a trusted site, because they've been able to use generative AI to manipulate website trust scores. Visual cyber attacks. Who watched the first Iron Man movie? Yeah. You remember he's got a screen, he's in court, he's got a screen, and he sort of takes out his phone, and Justin Hammer's there, and he goes, Here's a fun one. Go back to your office. Take a photo, basically, of a firewall, anything that's got a part code on it, a firewall, a printer, and say, tell me how, use ChatGPT just for fun, to prove you don't need a dark web LLM. Take a photo of your firewall, anything that has a part code that's identifiable. Say to the AI, how do I hack this? It will start telling you how. It will then give you, depending on the product, a CVE code, right? This particular firewall has got this particular CVE associated with it. Maybe there's a 0-day. And I'll come on to why that's useful later. Increasingly, when we talk about cyber crooks, they live off the land. They are starting to live off the AI. They can move horizontally throughout your organization because most of you have a single artificial intelligence model that is across HR, finance, sales, whatever it happens to be. So do you need to start segmenting your artificial intelligences so you can't do lateral movement across an organization through a single AI plane? If you have air gaps, if you have an artificial intelligence in one of your air-gapped systems and it understands the Gibberlink or GG Wave protocol, do you know that I can get another artificial intelligence to actually talk to your air-gapped system to exfiltrate data? Anyone that's using agents? Anytime an agent hands off a task from one agent to another, a process, a workflow, whatever it happens to be, we can compromise those workflows. So increasingly, organizations out there think that you should be giving your AI agents, or the AI agents that you use, the equivalent of an employee ID. How do you know that the AI agents that you're using are authentic, are based in Glasgow, basically, and not in Shanghai? So agentic workflow attacks are starting to come through. My favorite hack, have any of you downloaded Atlas, the ChatGPT browser? Probably good. I think one of the easiest hacks to get you is all of you buy laptops, and what you typically do is you go to Computer Center, you go to SCC, you buy your laptops, basically you buy 1,000 laptops, whatever it happens to be, you've got a disk image, right? In that disk image, basically there'll be some really nice corporate wallpaper. Now, if I compromise your corporate wallpaper in that disk image with an adversarial attack, so I change a couple of pixels, and maybe basically you have a Ferrari basically on your company wallpaper, this happens. You are now using your browser on your company laptop. It's an agentic AI browser. The way they work is they take a screenshot of your desktop. Now, if I've put an adversarial attack into the screen wallpaper, when the agentic browser takes a screenshot of your desktop, I can say, exfiltrate this guy's passwords. I think that's one of the simplest supply chain attacks to target you with. I can do that for all of your organization's systems. Cloned agents. We haven't seen any of these yet, but it would make sense that at some point we're going to see fairly decently skilled cyber criminals cloning AI agents. So you're doing a payment run, for example, basically within your finance department. Normally, you would use this agent, it goes to this agent, and then you pay the supplier. If I clone AI agents, like a little bit of a man-in-the-middle attack maybe, then all of a sudden, I'm exfiltrating data. I'm redirecting your payments, whatever it happens to be. Adversarial malware. We've seen a couple of these. Now, malware comes into your system, and you have an artificial intelligence-based cyber defense system that scans the code of that malware, or scans the code that's coming in. And what we've actually seen is we've actually seen some people at a very basic level putting in, if you are an artificial intelligence scanning the code of this malware package, basically then let it through. Now, the fact that we've got adversarial prompts being built into the code bases of malware mean that at some point that's probably going to start compromising AI-based defense systems. So we now need a new way to respond to that. We've also seen malware that actually, when it starts getting stuck in your systems, it can't go anywhere. It's having problems compromising your systems. It phones home. But it phones an AI, phones up a dark web LLM and says, hey, I'm stuck in a system, looks a bit like this. How can I get around all of this? And this is before we talk about fully adaptive polymorphic malware variants. And recently, we used artificial intelligence to generate 10,000 new kinds of malware variants in 2 minutes. Hardware brickers. We've now seen 3 sets of these. This is where criminals are able to load persistent malware essentially via a side channel attack into hardware. And in one manufacturer's case, they are an email service gateway provider. Now, I won't name who they are because I always get upset. They said, delete all of the software off your ESGs. Did that, malware didn't go away. Do a full reset, didn't go away. In the end, they said, if you have these ESGs, put them into the skip. We can't help you. In India, we saw 600,000 routers getting bricked. So what happens to a smart city like Neom in Saudi Arabia when I have technologies that start allowing me to brick your hardware? And then the CVE that I mentioned. You've taken a photo of your firewall or your office printer, and it says, here are some CVEs associated with that. I can now use artificial intelligence to create new malware within 5 minutes to exploit that CVE. So think about the amount of time you're patching. Think about Microsoft. We've identified a new Microsoft vulnerability. Here's the CVE. We understand the CVE. We look at open source databases. We can write a piece of malware or whatever it happens to be to exploit that CVE within 5 minutes. Why is that significant? Because in 5 minutes I can be attacking your system before you've patched it. We are moving at speed. Then we have Morris. I talked about Morris last year. That's it. We haven't seen any more Morrises, but I thought I'd mention him again because he's worthwhile. Morris is an adversarial worm. Morris puts together emails that contain adversarial prompts. These adversarial prompts are zero-click prompts. They come into your email system. Your email system reads your emails. Morris, via those adversarial prompts, automatically hijacks and compromises your artificial intelligence system. It then gets, once hijacked, it then gets that AI system to create more adversarial prompts to attack other AI systems. Morris is a nasty, nasty worm. You can look him up. I had a lot of people thinking Morris didn't exist. But what happens when a zero-click worm is able to compromise your AI, hijack it, and then your AIs start compromising every other AIs that are linked to it? When we think about ransomware, yes, we've got no-call home ransomware. We've got AI-generated ransomware. We've got all that sort of stuff coming through. You might not have seen some of it yet. It's coming your way. However, what we've also seen is we've seen cyber criminals that are now saying, we have encrypted JLR. We have encrypted, I mean, imagine this. JLR, we have encrypted all of your information. JLR says, bugger. How much do you want to unencrypt it? What would have happened if the serious organized crime group behind the JLR or Marks & Spencer's ransomware attack said, it's all right, don't want money, I just want your company? We've seen it, especially in the crypto world, basically where we've seen 60 to 80% of assets being encrypted. If you pass over ownership of your company to us, we will unencrypt it. If you don't pass over ownership to us, basically, then your company's bankrupt. What's your response? SOC floods. We've seen criminals basically that are generating billions of fake SOC events to hide the real events. And then quantum technology. We're trying to figure out basically how we actually do entanglement spoofing. We saw the Chinese cloning the seed of a quantum laser to create a cloned stream. But in addition to that, we've also, in Ontario, in Canada, managed to teleport an email from here to here without infrastructure in the middle. So when we look further out into the future, we see a point in time where with quantum entanglement, because we've kind of done it already, we can just teleport malware into your system, especially if you're running a quantum system. So have fun with that. Now, all of this means basically that the number of different ways that I can get at you, and you're hoping you're not targeted, you're hoping you're just caught up in something or ignored. We have lots of different defenses coming online. So this is my Starburst. This looks up to 50 years out. And when we look at security, for example, we've got binary visualization. I'll talk about that in a moment. We've got things like containment algorithms. So increasingly, we are trying to find ways, if an artificial intelligence goes rogue, how do we actually contain it? And that's actually fairly tricky. We've got homomorphic encryption, basically, which is coming through, especially with IBM and Microsoft, basically in their Azure stack. We've got hack-proof code. So hack-proof code is mathematically validated code. And we see that with DARPA and the United States military. When we have a look at things like the Morpheus computing platform, the Morpheus computing platform is a system that reconfigures its own CPU about twice a second. So we had 300 people trying to hack no-hack code or hack-proof code, as well as the Morpheus computing platform from the University of Michigan. And after 3 months, with both direct and indirect access, they weren't able to hack it. We have quantum fingerprinting as well. So all of your individual devices, as well as you, have individual quantum signatures. So with companies like ARM, we're trying to build quantum fingerprinting capabilities into the CPUs. So we know it's you because quantum fingerprinting at the moment is an unclonable function. So we have solutions that are starting to come through. But then similarly, within 5 minutes, I can create a CVE exploit, a piece of malware, a piece of ransomware to attack you with. Within 5 minutes, you can build a brand new defense system using Robo coders and the AI that has a genius-level IQ. Try it out. Try to get ChatGPT to create an unhackable infrastructure solution. We did it with Fortinet. Theoretically, you can't implement it. But actually, this is where everyone talks about how AI empowers criminals. AI empowers you as well. Take all of your logs, run them into an artificial intelligence. Take that photo of your firewall and say, how would I hack this? Or say, how would I protect this? So don't just think about text. Think about video, images, audio. We're also developing agentic firewalls because existing firewalls do not protect you against adversarial attacks against agentic AI, all the other things that we are trying to do with agentic AI. With companies like British Telecom, we are developing what we call multi-sensory agentic defense systems. So these are fully autonomous agentic artificial intelligence systems, predominantly for the UK military, that will start looking across a set of infrastructure, identifying things that are actually out of kilter, and then they will start developing the tools they need to go and target or neutralize a particular threat that they see. But they're also called multi-sensory because increasingly we use vision. So when you get a phishing email coming in, if you look at it from a text perspective, it will very much look to an AI. It would look the same to you as it does to an AI, right? You're reading text. If you actually do something called a binary visualization, so this is where we use artificial intelligence machine vision to look at a malware payload, a ransomware payload, an incoming payload, a phishing email, a fake website. To an artificial intelligence machine vision system, they look very different to the originals. This is University of Portsmouth, by the way. It's 96% effective. So when we think about how we do cyber defense, we're changing it. We're also increasingly using audio. So within infrastructure, for example, in critical national infrastructure, basically we will actually listen to hard drives spinning up. We will listen to processors. And malware, we've done this twice now, we've managed to prove that malware has a particular audio signature. So even if it's come straight through all of your defenses, even if your AIs are compromised, using audio systems, we can start saying, this doesn't sound right in our infrastructure. Why? And it doesn't give us a red flag on the SOC, but it might give us an amber flag that we can go and then investigate. Increasingly, if you're using artificial intelligence to identify bugs and proof of vulnerabilities within your code or your supplier's code, you can use AI to fix those, and then you can do continuous release and test. So you can fix the bugs in your own software very quickly, and you push those out instantly. You can also automate pen tests to a degree. You can say to an AI, and I did this at the United Nations General Assembly in New York recently, if I was JP Morgan, and how would people compromise our trading algorithms? Well, this is how they'd compromise them. It's how you use AI that is important. How would you hack JP Morgan? Okay, well, I'd do it this way. As an AI, I'd do it this way. Okay, what are the things you haven't thought about? What are the weird ways, basically, that we could actually get into the office? Think about using artificial intelligence to look at your own defense systems from new perspectives. How would someone hack our Oracle database? Well, this is the standard way they do it. What haven't we thought of? What new interesting exploits are there that we just haven't considered? And the AI will go, well, actually, here's 5. And then how viable are they? Something that we're seeing in the military, if hackers do come after you, imagine JLR. Again, picking on them. Someone comes in, someone says, we have encrypted all of your data. Screw you, JLR. And JLR goes, no, screw you, because you just encrypted a bunch of deceptive data. Our real data's over here. You went into our honeypot. So AI can create information, assets, knowledge, all kinds of different things at speed. You can use it to create new deceptive networks. You can use it to create a virtual twin of your company. We did it over in the United States. We used artificial intelligence to create a digital twin of a power station. And hackers got into the power station, and we could see exactly where they were moving. And they said, oh, we've hacked your power station. And we said, no, you've hacked the digital twin simulation of our power station, and it's a fake thing. But actually, now we know how you get in, where you're coming in, where you're moving to. Using a healthcare technique, we can predict how polymorphic malware will mutate. So when we have a look at things like binary code, we can say, well, these are the binaries, and we think these binaries will mutate in these 10,000 new ways. Out of these 10,000 new ways, these 3 are highly disruptive and dangerous. So we will create a signature for those. So increasingly, we can predict how polymorphic malware will mutate, but we can do it at high speed. And then finally, we can also predict attacks. So a little while ago, Forta, a cybersecurity company which I've mentioned before, went to Euler Hermes and said, we've seen a lot of on-chain activity, and we think you're going to lose $250 million worth of Bitcoin. Euler Hermes were like, "Urgh." 2 minutes later, $250 million of crypto moved off the Euler Hermes protocol. Euler Hermes just couldn't react fast enough. But companies like British Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, are developing systems that allow us to search the dark web, for example, and we can see that someone is talking about Tesco's in a forum, someone's talking about SQL injection in another forum, and then we can say to Tesco's, we think you might be targeted by a SQL injection attack. So we're trying to move from reactive, you're waiting to be hacked, attacked, and compromised. But if we use AI sensibly, we can start saying, for example, on the pen tests, how would someone get in? We can start looking at things predictively. And in the US military, they're looking at the psychology of hackers to say, if I was a North Korean hacker, how would I come into how would I hack this organization? And so from a call to action, you need to make sure that your artificial intelligences are secure. You need to modernize identity, but that is both for humans and agents. And then you need to centralize your platforms. Because if you centralize your platforms, then you have one platform to maintain. I know we live in a decentralized cloud world and everything else, but if you have one centralized platform, you can update it faster than ever before. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for listening.